Web direction. Optimize, promote, convert. Welcome to another Web Direction Content Strategy session. Today we review Content Audits. And now, here is Scott Frangos.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to take a look at a real important part of content strategy, and it has to do with content audits. The slide that you're seeing here is from my course on Udemy on content strategy and marketing with WordPress. I'll have a link with a nice discount for you down below in the comment section. We're going to talk about content audits, how important they are, and how they can help you leverage your content. We'll find out what's working well and what's not. What do we mean by working? We want to see if we can improve the engagement. Maybe that's time spent on a page, interacting with content. We want to see if we can improve reach for both SEO, ranking, and in social venues. Is it being shared? We want to repurpose content that's not working well, or content that is working well and maybe step it up and have it become something like cornerstone content or a very important piece of content on your site. Now in my course, I'll go over each one of these things separately and more in depth. Here I want to give you a big picture overview of what it's all about and some tools that we use and some tactics even in this video. So one of the first tools that we like to use on WordPress sites is the Content Audit tool. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, but first I want to start with a document, a PDF document that I actually have downloadable in my class, but I'll just give you a quick walkthrough here. Notice that the focus points in a content audit are engaging, and we want to evaluate content quality and effectiveness. We're going to look for any content gaps. Are there things we're not publishing that we should be? We want to see about engaging, again, user interface, and I specifically mentioned Divi because the Divi theme has some great modules in ways to build out very engaging user interfaces. Want to enhance for search engine optimization, for content efficiency, and we'll talk more about that in the course, and we want to optimize for conversions. Now here's some output that we did for a large site from the plugin that I just mentioned. I'm going to tell you more about the Content Audit plugin. You can export a file that goes directly to a spreadsheet and then write notes on it. What's missing from that one is some thinking about the buyer's journey. So are you writing content that's for an immediate decision, just for awareness, or for consideration? Those are steps in the buyer's journey that your prospects may be in, and you should write content accordingly. Then, how is it performing? Are there backlinks? How are the sessions? How many people viewed the content? Is it being shared? One of the ways to work through a content audit, and I'll show you a little bit more in a moment, is using SEMrush's Content Audit tool. And again, I'll explain more in my course, but we'll have a quick look and overview now in case you want to use that tool. And then finally, our team uses, I'll just zoom out a little bit, Trello as a tool to organize what we're going to do next with content. And you can see that here we have service providers over here. People use Trello in different ways. The point is that SEM's tool can output to Trello so that we can take a look at what we need to do next. Now let's go look at a series of things that we do within WordPress for our content to enable our content audit. So this is a plugin that I like rather well. It was written by a lady named Stephanie Leary, who's also written a book. And in the book, Content Strategy for WordPress, she talks about evaluating your site with a content audit. I looked it up for you. It's available as a Kindle book. I don't think it's available as a paperback. I will put a link to this page in below. Let's look inside WordPress, the admin area, at what's going on with the content audit. First of all, one of the things the plugin does is lets you decide what types of information are you going to audit. And notice I just had pages on initially because there were like 200 pages for this client. They also have some posts. They have less posts than you might think, but we can turn it on for that and probably should. Scrolling down, we can see who's allowed to do the audit and some other key choices like, are we going to automatically mark content outdated if it's not been modified in how many years? That's all I'll say here. There's some other settings. We'll discuss this more in depth in my course. Now, here's another screen from the audit software where you can see there's an overview where we have been able to set up some categories we wanted to look at, and there's some that come standard. So this client needed to add some old content to a new event list, for example. So we set up a category for that. If it needs a new top image, let me just circle that so you can see where I'm talking about. There's 66 items that needed that. If it needed to add an event list, and so forth. And you'll notice since the audit is turned on for pages, that there now becomes a new column for content status where we can tag it based on what needs to be done. All right. There's also a way to put comments in, and you saw some of those comments on the content audit, but let me show you the live Google spreadsheet for this audit. So we were able to talk to the client and tell the client to let us know if a page had expired or not in the last column. And in the notes, there's different colors here based on who's making the comment. That was not from the audit. That was once we got it into the spreadsheet. We had sort of our own way of color coding things. And one of the people on one of our team members came up with these color codes based on what was going on and communicated that to the client. Very useful. Now let's look at another plugin. It's called Visual Sitemap. That one is also available on the WordPress site, and it's another one that's free. But again, we'll have to keep an eye on this. We might write to the plugin author and developer and say, hey, it hasn't been updated in a year. When are you going to update it? 5-star ratings. And it's going to be very important, especially on a large site, to get a big picture overview of how your pages are set up with sub-pages and child pages. Parent pages would be the top level in blue, and then the sub-pages. For those of you that know WordPress admin well, and if you're in my class, you should know this by now, you need to go to each page and set what the top level page it's under for this schematic to work. And this was very important for this client, which is a museum in the Pacific Northwest. They have a lot of pages, and they changed what the top level pages were and reshuffled the deck, if you will, of pages underneath. So they never had a top level named outside before in their grounds and gardens and sculpture gardens, and even a replica of Stonehenge at this museum outside. So they've redone their thinking of what they're going to say on their top level pages, and therefore what's going to be beneath, which made the visual sitemap really important. Here it is. You can download it, install it, and then it'll help you gain an overview picture of all of your pages and how they map out at your site. Now, Here's a look at an audit in SEMrush. And it's for one of my pages. And notice that up here I was able to make individual notes for each page at the site. Okay, and I already did that. I already made a note, update and consider making this cornerstone content, which is an SEO strategy and tactic that we'll cover more in other videos and certainly in the course. Hint, you can look up Yoast, who I believe came up with that term, and Yoast has a very, very popular SEO plugin that millions of users use, and he talks a lot about cornerstone content. So if you want to get a jump on that, Google Yoast, cornerstone content, and read up on it. So I'm looking at this content here, which mostly has an infographic that we produced some time ago. And the first thing I look at is how old is it? Well, you can see up at the top that this goes back 3 years from the time of this video to 2016. But if I look down at the bottom right here, again, I am in a service, a tool called SEMrush, and they made their own content audit tool. It tells me how many words are in here, which means not that, which I can see are not that many, 145. Should be more, but it got some shares. It got 9 shares, and it only got 2 total sessions. So could I rewrite this? Is the content in it important? Is it up to date? Does it explain something useful? And could I flesh out and add maybe another 400, 500, 600 words and then make it cornerstone content? Right now I'm thinking I can. Now, what about Google Analytics? Is there a way to review performance in analytics? The answer is yes. Let me show you quickly where I have this report. Let's see if I can open the left side, and I'll just move myself to the right so you can see it real quick. So it's under behavior, then site content, then landing pages. All right? So what is your content supposed to do? Each content that you slave over, you write, you rework it. You add all sorts of important things for your target prospects on their buyer's journey. And that's key, right? In the end, a lot of writers I've found don't understand this. You're not just writing for something interesting to read. In the very end, and that's because a lot of writers don't have their salesperson hats on. But in the very end, you're doing all this so that people will come, learn about you, and want to do business with you. Okay, so in that sense, every post you write becomes a landing page where people find you. And this is, again, in Google Analytics. I'll scoot over to the left here so you can see a little more of my screen. And in this report, please note that we've gone ahead and set up some goals. That's an important concept we'll go over in other videos. But goals might be that how much time they spend on the site, how much time they spend on the page, how many pages total they view when they visit the site. All of these things go to engagement, and people are more likely to do business with you if they spend more time looking at your content, which is why people like to say content is king. I like to say conversions are king and content is queen. But all that taken together is what you're trying to do with content, right? So what's another conversion goal? If you're a B2B company, it's getting leads. If you're a B2C company with an e-commerce store, it's actually getting sales. So they come to your site, they read about your products, and they go buy it. They come to your site, they read about what you do, then they fill out a lead form and ask to talk to you. Right now, I've been able to, most sites that have a blog have either named it blog or maybe something like general news, which could be a category. And when I filter for that category, I can look at all the blog posts in general news. And right now, I'm filtered and sorted by the number of sessions, the people that came to this page as a result, we hope, of it being ranked well. And then way over on the right, I can look at the goal value. And when you create goals in Google Analytics, you set dollar amounts as realistically as possible, and we'll talk about that later. Now let's look at another plugin I use for WordPress. Remember I told you we need to see how well your content is performing? Well, it's not just conversions, but also reach in social media. And this is a plugin that's a go-to plugin for us called Neelio, and we just almost can't do without it. And this is a little bit more about Neelio and its calendar and how you set it up and how it coaches you to write better posts and how you can analyze and reshare good content. Let's jump to an actual site. So here's our web direction site. And right now we're looking at some posts that are actually kind of old, but they got some good page views, good engagement. It looks mostly on Facebook. And here's one with Twitter page views and Facebook, but we only got 2 engaged. Now there's a little question mark that we can hover over. Engagement in social media according to Neelio. And remember that different software engineers describe things differently. This is pretty true across the board. And I'm thinking of Hootsuite when I say this, which does a lot of similar things. Neelio is more affordable. So you've got the number of interactions, likes, and shares on social networks and comments in WordPress, which is nice that they're tracking that. Now notice up at the top, with Neelio, I can sort by year to date and other time spans. Let's click apply for year to date, and we can see what's doing well right now. Now here's one that seemed to get a lot of interest in Facebook, a lot more than the first one we just looked at, 8.3%. So what can we do to increase that and maybe even get some more engagement? Would we advertise or boost this post on Facebook? That kind of thinking. So for recent posts, it's what can we do to amplify them? And for older posts, do we see some that look good and should we update them and republish them and repurpose them? Or do we see some that just aren't good? And there have actually been some research that suggests that you should delete poor performing content if you're not going to update it and repurpose it, and you'll do better in SEO when you do that. That's the last thing I'll say for this video, except that I've been referencing one of my courses, and it's on a site called udemy.com. I recommend it. When you go there, if you haven't been here before, try to pick courses that have 4 stars or higher ratings. Mine has 4.5 stars so far. And the other thing I'd mention to you is it's pretty expensive, but reasonable when you compare it to other colleges. If there's no special on, one night about $195. But this company often runs excellent pricing specials, and for the next 3 days, it's $11.99. That's where we'll go into more details about content strategy. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe if you're on YouTube, and you'll get notices about more helpful videos like this, and I hope to see you in my course. And of course, if you learn to do it yourself, kudos to you. If you need an agency, well, I founded Web Direction to help out busy marketing managers and CMOs so they don't get bogged down in the trenches. See you in the next video.
Scott teaches a course in content strategy with WordPress. Click on the link below.